Toyota has revealed the brand new RAV4. In this video, we're going to tell you everything we know so far about this important new family SUV. It's got a boxier look on the outside, a brand new interior with a bunch of new technology there as well, and for the first time, there'll be a plug-in hybrid version in Australia. We're going to tell you everything you need to know, including how much we think this new SUV is going to cost. Let's get started. The current RAV4 arrived in Australia in 2019 and almost immediately it generated a waitlist, even before the COVID pandemic, when that waitlist went out to 2 years at times during that period of stock shortages. These days, things have cooled down a bit, there's more stock, which means Toyota has been able to sell this car like crazy. 58,000 RAV4s were sold in Australia last year. That's the second best-selling new vehicle in the country, behind only the Ford Ranger Ute. And it's even a better seller than the Toyota Hilux Ute, which was the country's bestseller overall for 7 years until 2023, which means this new RAV4 is a seriously important model for the company. So what does it offer? Well, let's have a look with the design first up. Now we are calling this the new RAV4, but it's not quite an all-new car. It is pretty similar under the skin to the previous car. Now, at the time we're filming this, which is ahead of the global embargo lifting, but when you're watching this video, we don't know exactly how big the new RAV4 is, but looking at the photos, which we'll get to in a minute, it looks pretty similar to the outgoing model in terms of size. So not too small, not too big, that sort of right spot for a family SUV. Now, there have been some pretty significant changes with the design. You can see, starting up front, new front end, that sort of a hammerhead look that Toyota's going for a bunch of its new models. The Camry, for instance, the BZ4X, a bunch of different cars with those C-shaped LED headlights. A new honeycomb style body colored grille. It looks a little bit like a Lexus, or the new Lexus RX as the example there. And you get a different front end depending on which model you choose. Obviously there's a more conventional design we just talked about there, but also this sporty look for the GR Sport model. I'll get back to that in a moment, as well as this cool off-road spec. It looks a bit like the 4Runner that's sold in the US, the sort of off-road SUV. That isn't something we're expecting to get here in Australia, which is a bit of a shame, but overall it does have a boxy look up front, that's for sure. Now there are some elements that look to be carryover, at least familiar from the outgoing RAV4. Things like the wheel arch shape is pretty similar to before. Also those mirrors do look like they have been pinched from the current model, but even things like the doors, which look similar but have some new sculpting on them. And overall it is a boxier car, a tougher looking car, a bit more off-road focused, which is perhaps where things are going these days with cars. Have a look at the new Prado, for example. It looks like a big box on wheels in a good way. Now, coming to the back, you can see this black trim that runs across the rear of the car. Integrates those tail lights as well as some neat RAV4 badging there as well. There are some hints of other cars in this class. I see a bit of Nissan X-Trail in the back of this car, as well as some Subaru Forester too. So maybe not a bad thing perhaps. Those cars are quite attractive as far as the class goes. But yeah, it is definitely a good design in my opinion. You get 20-inch wheels on top of the range models. That's up from 19s on the current car today. And overall, as I said, boxier look. And yeah, big fan of the way it looks. What do you think? Let us know in the comments down below. As for that GR Sport version we talked about before, something similar has been offered in overseas markets for a couple of years now in the current generation car. This is the first time we'll be getting this in Australia, and it does actually look quite different to the rest of the range. Different front bumper with that sort of GR Corolla hot hatch inspired look there, as you can see. Quite a pronounced rear spoiler at the back, different 20-inch wheels, and there are actually some mechanical changes under the skin to set this version apart. So you've got a 20mm wider track width, that's how far the wheels are spaced apart across the car, as well as stiffer suspension, so different dampers, different bracing as well, and also a unique calibration for the power steering. I'm not expecting it to be a full GR product. It's not meant to be a full performance car, but it's a bit of a sportier edge, and it will be offered solely with that plug-in hybrid powertrain, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the video. If you thought the exterior looked different to the current RAV4, this interior is also a massive step forward over the current car. Obviously 2 big screens, but it's just generally a simpler, more contemporary design overall, I'd say. Things like the hood over the instrument cluster are gone. It's a bit simpler. And overall, I am a fan of the way this interior looks. Now, 2 big screens, as I mentioned before, digital driver display behind the steering wheel there. It does look like that will be standard across the range this time. There won't be a conventional sort of analog gauges as you can get in the current model. Obviously, in the middle of this car, you have this brand new touchscreen. It's running new software called Arene. It's meant to use some AI stuff to make it a little bit better over time. Over-the-air updates, Apple CarPlay, SatNav, all the things you'd expect of a new car along those lines. It's meant to be faster, a bit more responsive, a bit newer as well in the graphics. Now we don't know how big the screen is at the time we're filming this video, but it looks to be sort of 12 to 14 inches, so similar to other cars in the new Toyota range. That steering wheel is also new. It looks very Prado-esque, a little bit boxier, a little bit more chunky in the design of the controls. Now there are still some physical buttons throughout the car. You can see under the screen you've got some shortcuts for air temperature as well as a volume dial, which is nice to see. But it does seem like things like your fan speed, your heated seats have moved into the touchscreen, which is not so good. Toyota has been pretty good with keeping physical controls for stuff compared to brands like Volkswagen, for example. But yeah, one thing about the new RAV4 that we're not so keen to see is more touch-sensitive controls there. Now, elsewhere in the car, this new center console is, as I said, all new. Now, the gear shifter does change depending on the model you go for. You can see the base variants have sort of this very conventional gear lever, kind of similar to what you get in the RAV4 today. But higher grades have this sort of little, I don't know what you call it, like a stubby little lever, I suppose. Very similar to something like a new Volkswagen Golf. And yeah, save space in the center console, looks a bit more contemporary. Whether you like that, obviously, is up to you. But worth noting that will change depending on the model you go for. Now, the more controls around the place with things like your drive mode, your EV mode on the hybrid powertrain, as well as your 360 camera and stuff like that. Now, some features we can see in the car: heated and ventilated seats on that touchscreen there, heated steering wheel, 360 camera, as well as a wireless phone charger there, sort of partway up the dashboard. Overall, I do like the design of the new RAV4's interior. It definitely is a step change from the current car. It's not a complete revolution. It doesn't look like a Tesla inside, for example. Sort of a bit of modernity with a bit of an old school feel, which is good, and a lot of Toyota buyers will appreciate. Now, these launch photos we've been sent by Toyota show a bunch of different interior options in terms of the colorway. You can see this one here with sort of green fabric on the dash looks to be an off-road model with a slightly smaller infotainment screen. There is a choice of 2 different sizes there as well. We've got one with white interior around the place and white trim on the dashboard, as well as the GR Sport model, which you can see has black trim, but also these leather and suede sport seats, red accents, GR badge on the steering wheel as well, and things like aluminium pedal covers, some red stitching around the place, and overall, a bit of a sportier feel. It's not going to be a full sports car, but again, it has some sports seats and things to set it apart inside from the other models in the range. Now, the big talking point for Australia is the new plug-in hybrid drivetrain. This is the first time we're getting it here in Australia. It has been offered overseas for a couple of years in a sort of lesser form than the previous RAV4, but it's not something we got here in our market. Now, that one does use a 2.5 litre engine, as well as a 22.7 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is pretty big for a car like this. And it gives it actually quite a long electric only driving range, 100 kilometers on battery power alone, which is pretty competitive in this class. Something like a BYD C-Line 7 is around the 100 kilometer mark. And that's actually on a less stringent test cycle than what Toyota claims with RAV4. It should mean that you can get perhaps to work and back once or twice a week without actually having to plug in the car or use a single drop of petrol, which is really good to see. And a great option for buyers perhaps that want the convenience of an EV around town, but still want to be able to do long road trips and not have to worry about the charging infrastructure in Australia, which can be a little bit patchy in rural areas. Toyota Australia has had its eye on plug-in hybrids for a while, but it's been waiting for the range to get long enough. The previous RAV4 plug-in hybrid had a range of about 60 to 70 kilometers on electric power. Obviously, this one is longer and a bit more usable for customers in the real world. Now, there's a 150 kilowatt electric motor in the front of this new plug-in hybrid, and you can get it with front or all-wheel drive. The front-wheel drive model has 201 kilowatts combined when you add the electric motor plus the engine, while the all-wheel drive has 227 kilowatts, which is actually more power than you get from a Toyota GR Corolla hot hatch. This is a seriously powerful car by family SUV standards, and a 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in that all-wheel drive in 5.8 seconds, which is sort of hot hatch territory, something like a Golf GTI from Volkswagen. And it's a little bit slower than a GR Corolla, but still, this is seriously quick for a family SUV. It isn't designed to be a full-on performance car. Now, we do expect there will be a range of model grades that will offer that plug-in hybrid powertrain. That GR Sport I mentioned before will be plug-in hybrid only with all-wheel drive, as you sort of expect, given it is more of a performance-oriented model. In terms of charging, you've got 2 choices here. Obviously, your normal AC plug that you'll find at, say, a wall box at home, or just plugging it into the mains power point. You can get up to 11 kilowatts through that for a full charge in about 3 hours or so. But you can visit a DC fast charging station. That's what you see more commonly on the side of a road, perhaps on a long road trip, that are used more commonly for electric cars. Up to 50 kilowatts charging there for a 10 to 80% charge in 30 minutes or so, Toyota says. Obviously, we'll test that when we get the car on Aussie roads next year, but it's still pretty competitive stats for a plug-in hybrid. Toyota is definitely not messing about with this car. 100k's EV range will be super usable, lots of power for that plug-in hybrid. I can't wait to drive this car when it comes to Australia in the first half of next year. Now, before we get to price, let's have a quick chat about safety features. Toyota has confirmed a couple of the top-line highlights that will be offered on this car. Probably the most interesting one for me, at least, from a global point of view, we don't know if we're going to get this in Australia, but I do certainly hope so, is an auto lane change function. So you're on the freeway, adaptive cruise control turned on, and lane centering also turned on. You can tap the indicator and the car will automatically change lanes for you. We've been seeing this tech on new Hyundai cars, particularly the Santa Fe. That's our Drive Car of the Year for 2025 there as well. It's a bit of a gimmick perhaps at times, but it is pretty useful on a longer drive. Definitely does take a bit of the fatigue out of something like that. Other features worth mentioning, you've got front cross traffic alert. So when you stop at a roundabout and there are cars coming from the side, the car will warn you in case you don't see them in time. Got an improved autonomous emergency braking system that can now detect motorcycles as well as cyclists, pedestrians, intersections, stuff like that. Your blind spot monitor now has a rear vehicle approach warning. So it means if you're in the lane, there's a car coming up quite quickly from behind you, it'll perhaps warn you a bit sooner than it might otherwise. And a whole bunch of different parking aids as well. 360 camera, as I mentioned before, that now has a 3D view. So you can see a sort of a top-down bird's eye view of the car, something that's getting quite common in the family SUV space, as well as an auto parking function that actually works remotely. This is something we're seeing in Hyundai and Kia cars now as well. You're able to stand next to the car on your smartphone and actually remotely pull it or back it out of a space, which is pretty cool. Good if someone's parked you in, for example, and there is enough space to open the door. Bit of a gimmick, but again, there is some use to it at times. Overall, it's definitely an upgrade in the safety stakes for the RAV4, and it was needed to keep it fresh compared to some of its newer rivals in the segment. Now, before we get to price, if you're finding this video informative and like this new format that we're doing in terms of a new style video, let us know down below and give us a like as well so we can give you more of this kind of content in the future, keep you up to date with all the latest automotive news. Now, I've teased you for long enough, let's talk about how much this car could cost. Now, we don't know for sure exactly, it's still quite a way out from the launch of this car in Australia, but we can take a bit of a guess based on where the current car is positioned. The base model today starts from $42,260 plus on-road costs, for about 45, 46 grand drive away, depending on where in Australia you live, and goes up to 58 grand plus on-road costs, or about sort of 62, 63,000 drive away for that top of the range Edge hybrid model in the current lineup. Now, I would expect there will be a price rise for the new car, not confirmed, but it is pretty reasonable to assume given there's more tech, more features on offer in this new car. So I could see it starting from about 45 grand plus on-roads, sort of closer to 50 drive away, which is getting up there for a base family SUV, but given it has hybrid tech as standard, obviously it is quite a well-equipped car, even today's base RAV4. It's not too unreasonable in the state of the current market. That's in line with something like a Hyundai Tucson hybrid, starts from about 45 grand plus on-roads, a bit more expensive than a Mazda CX-5, but it is sort of, again, in the ballpark of some of its rivals in that space. Now, the big question though is the plug-in hybrid. How much will that cost? Now, we don't know how much of a premium Toyota will charge for this technology over the normal hybrid. Other brands, it tends to be about 5 to 10 grand depending on which brand you go for, which means we could be seeing a top of the range RAV4 in that GR Sport version, sort of approaching 65, 70 grand before on-roads, or even more drive away. That is a serious amount of money for a RAV4. Again, it's all speculation for now, but it's a lot more expensive than, say, a BYD C-Line 6, which you can get for sort of 45, 55 grand drive away, depending on which model you go for. Though it is a closer match to something like a Mitsubishi Outlander. That's about 65 to 80,000 drive away, or thereabouts. Again, depends on where you live in Australia and things like that. So it's competitive with the market, but yeah, it will remain to be seen where Toyota positions that car and just how sharp it can get on the price. It does seem like it's leading with a plug-in hybrid in this new range, perhaps a bit less of a focus on the normal hybrid, as you can see with that sort of power cut we talked about a bit earlier in this video. Obviously time will tell, and things like standard spec, the model range, the waiting list, and things like that, we'll have to wait till closer to launch in the first half of next year. So there you have it. That's all we know so far on the new Toyota RAV4 following its reveal here today. It's quite an exciting prospect for the class. Obviously, it is the top seller in the category, so it is something you want to wait for if you're in the market for a family SUV like this. But it looks pretty attractive on the outside, in my opinion. The new interior, more technology, a bit of a different design to the current car. Obviously, that new plug-in hybrid is the talking point. It's something that if you've wanted a plug-in hybrid but haven't wanted a BYD or something like a Mitsubishi Outlander is a little bit too big, again, that is a 7-seater, the RAV4 is a 5-seater. This car is definitely worth waiting for. What do you think? Let us know in the comments down below. We can't wait to get behind the wheel of the new RAV4 early next year. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that video when it comes out. In the meantime, if you can't wait and want to scope out some of this car's competition, click up there to watch our video review of some of its car's competitors, the Nissan X-Trail, Hyundai Tucson, and the Kia Sportage, all in hybrid form.